Hello beautiful souls, my name is Jackie Lane from peachyhealth.co.uk. I empower women to live juicier lives by choosing self-love on all levels. And today I've got a very special guest on my channel. This is Saida Desilets. This wonderful woman has created tried and tested jade egg practices and has an ebook and an online course for these amazing techniques. She's the author of the book The Emergence of the Sensual Woman. Saida has hosted live events and true inspiration to women worldwide, and I was lucky enough to be informed about Saida's work by a dear friend, and I have literally been blown away ever since, and I simply had to invite her on my channel. So welcome, Saida. Thank you so much for coming on my channel today. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
And when you first sent me the invite, I'm like, who is this beautiful person? And I went and checked you out, and I got really excited to spend some time with you. So thanks for the invite.
Yay, thank you. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your journey and why you are doing what you're doing today.
Right. I have a long journey. I could say that my entire life has been dedicated to the topic of sensuality and sexuality. I was actually quite a sexual little being when I was young. So the erotic, innocent part of me was very, very intact. Parents who chose consciously not to eradicate that. So I was very blessed, which meant that I had a very active self-loving practice, let's say. And through being free to explore my body and what pleased my body and these kinds of things, I discovered something very special by the age of 5 that I felt every little girl needed to know about. And so I held my very first little meeting in the basement with other little 5-year-olds, and I showed them this spot on my body. I'm like, you have to find this for yourself. It is so good. And we got discovered, of course, by an older sister, got in a lot of trouble. And as she angrily threw me out of the house, I remember thinking in my young mind, I bet she doesn't know this spot, because if she did, she wouldn't be so angry. Yeah. And so that little look into the young Saida is basically the essence of what emerged as an adult. This passion, this love of the body, this love of what's natural and delightful to us, what's actually our birthright, and the discovery that the world out there not only misunderstands it, but misuses this incredible natural resource we have. So my journey as a young woman and throughout my 20s and 30s has been challenging on some levels. I had some life-threatening experiences that happened with sexual trauma, many things that I had to face on this journey of conscious sexuality. But a lot of beauty also emerged. And one of the gifts that came from that was the discovery of something I use called the Jade egg. It's not mine, it's been around a long time. But through embarking in a very deep practice with this little tool of transformation, my life changed in profound ways. So profound that I was invited to teach women all over the world, and decided to do my PhD in this very subject, looking at how this little tool affects women in very deep ways and why. And so this opportunity to take something that's an old tradition and to bridge it with modern science and the deep wisdom, not only in my own body, but the wisdom that would emerge after speaking with literally tens of thousands of women, their real life sharing of what's actually happening in their body, what works, what doesn't work. Forget all the theories and fancy ideas, what's actually working. That's the piece that I'm an advocate for. I'm an advocate for that voice, and something that I love to call the erotic genius that lives in all of us. So my journey has been deep and rich and delicious, and the whole time there's been this thread of what is conscious sexuality? What is that?
Wow, that's amazing. Like, you're literally just paving the way for women all across the world, and just giving us permission to explore this side of ourselves which has just been forgotten or suppressed, and or just, yeah, like you said, used in a really imbalanced way. And I just think it's just amazing what you're doing. And actually, you just touched on my next question. I was going to say, you often refer to the a woman's erotic genius, and I was just wondering if you'd be able to explain what that is.
Yes, absolutely. Erotic genius is something that emerged later in my career. It's conceptually always been with me. I just didn't have the words to articulate this thing that I could feel in my own being and in the beings of all the other women that I had the privilege to work with. So let's first break down what those two words mean. Erotic for me isn't just sexual and explicit. Erotic, if you look at the root word of eros, or where it comes from, it means that which animates life. So there's erotic energy in all things that are fecund and proliferating in this planet. It's an incredible energy. It's life energy. And then you have genius, and the origin of genius is quite old, and originally it was thought of as the animated spirit within a person that provides guidance, that leads them accurately through life through the act of inspiration. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
So here we have within us aliveness, life force, sexuality, whatever you want to call it, the eros. You have this erotic aliveness and this genius, this inner guidance, this inner impulse through inspiration, creativity that is leading us through life. And we don't need to do anything about this because we are innately born with it. The only doingness, if there was any, is to recognize that we have it. Erotic genius it acts out unconsciously at first. It's the parts of us that have erotic innocence. When we're children, we're just naturally exploring, sensuality and sensation and pleasure. And then we have hormonal bursts of energy. That's erotic activation. We're teenagers and things are changing. We're becoming more and more sexual beings, more sexual creatures, right? And we're discovering, wow, sexuality has power. And then we go more into adulthood and we start to explore, well, what is this realm? And so we explore, and hopefully we explore everything and anything from a pure state of curiosity. Not right, wrong, good, bad, but just like, what is that? Let's try it. Oh, didn't like it. Okay, let's try this thing. Ooh, I like that. So it's an exploratory time. And then there's a point in our evolution sexually, which I'm not sure, maybe you're there right now. Jackie, you can let me know if this resonates. But there's a moment where consciousness meets body, where you suddenly think to yourself, there's got to be more to sex than this. I feel like there's more, but I don't know what it is. And so then we start seeking out things like Tantra or Taoism or conscious sexuality. We start to look at, is there ways that I can connect with this powerful energy, but more consciously, like meditations or certain practices with my partner or certain practices alone with myself. That's that part of the journey of the erotic genius. You get to a stage, but in the stage, in all those first 4 stages, we're still reliant on external validation and external feedback. And when we get to finally the 5th stage of erotic genius, which is the erotic wisdom, we suddenly drop into being sexually sovereign, and we self-activate, and we kind of self-validate, so that if our particular experience of pleasure isn't written about anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter. We know it exists because we've experienced it, and we validate it for ourselves. So erotic genius has many expressions, some of it conscious, some of it unconscious, but it is always the current that runs in our system that is making choices to keep us on the path towards pleasure, to keep us on the path. What turns you on, not just sexually, but what's turning you on in life? Because there's no separation. If what you're looking for in career to be really successful, you need to be turned on by that. It needs to inspire you. You need to wake up in the morning and go, yes, I get to do this. That kind of turn on is what's going to create a lot of vitality and health and aliveness in your body, and it comes from your erotic genius. and I can say a lot more about it, but I just take a pause there.
Yeah. Wow.
Raving about this, and I'd love to give you a moment to say something.
Oh my gosh, seriously, this is just amazing. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head from the point I'm at the moment. Like I'm at that beginning stage of exploring, and I've had experiences in the past where I know that there's more to it, but I guess I have had a lot of shame around it, and so I've been afraid to explore myself and explore that side of things again. So it's now that I'm kind of starting to do that again. And what you've just said, like literally, oh, it's just amazing. What you've just said is just resonating with me so much. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's brilliant. And actually, again, it this kind of links into my next question. Is it okay for me to carry on, or did you want to talk more? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
One thing I've realized is that when you say the word pleasure, everybody instantly thinks sexual pleasure. And although I realize like sexual pleasure is important, I also feel that just general pleasure is really important as well. And I was just wondering, when you speak about pleasure, what do you mean by that, and why do you think it's so important?
Beautiful question. So pleasure. Let's talk biology first, and then I'll go into my definition.
Okay.
So in biology, all living beings on this planet have a makeup that either moves them away from or contracts them against pain. And you can see that all the way down to like little cells. Like there's a movement away from pain, and there's a movement towards, or an expansion towards, pleasure. So our biological system is hardwired in this simple like on-off switch, right? Every creature has this, every creature. So pleasure in that level is an indication of surviving and thriving. Make sense?
Yes.
So the system, our biology is designed to thrive in an environment of pleasure where we are feeling good, where the body is healthy, where the mind is healthy, where the emotional body is healthy. We're feeling delighted and relaxed and joyous and creative. These are the birthrights of being a human being, and also for all other beings as well. No one should really be in a constant state of suffering. So that's like a fundamental definition that exists on pleasure. So when I refer to pleasure, it has to do with a concept that I came up with years ago called omni-orgasmic state. And I believe that we are all, as human beings, born into this omni-orgasmic state. An omni-orgasmic state means all orgasmic. What does that mean? So I'm not talking just sex here. So we'll clarify that in a moment. Imagine that every cell in your body, every fiber of your body, has the capacity to have receptor sites on ow and yum.
Yeah.
Right? Every little fiber is set up that way. Your nerve fibers everywhere. It's like either ow or yum, right? So the omni-orgasmic aspect is the yum aspect. It's that every cell, every fiber can actually experience delight and pleasure. Let's take that a step further and take it out of the sexual realm, although that's inclusive of the sexual realm. And imagine that our senses, that which is the bridge to reality, our senses make sense of reality. So our sensuality is bridging whatever's out there. It's bringing it in and giving us a visceral experience of it. That's how we make sense of reality, through the sensuality. So you imagine that through the senses, a certain smell is so good that it elicits delight and pleasure that streams through your body, and you're like, whoa, I love that smell. Or you see a sunset so beautiful, it cracks you wide open, and the pleasure level could be so profound that it actually feels like an orgasm, but it's happening everywhere in the body. These are possibilities for everyone. They're not some weird freak of nature thing. Um, it's a person who either has never been numbed or socially conditioned out of noticing their own arousal cues and what's going on somatically in their body, or it's a person who's had those experiences but has come back to make the choice of having a deep somatic relationship with their body, where they're actually attuned to the signals like, wow, that feels good, yum. And this is literally an internal compass that we have hardwired in our body. Because, as I said earlier, biologically, we are being pulled towards pleasure. So if you have that compass, imagine you really use it authentically, like an instinctual being. You see like animals and babies. A person will walk in the room and the baby's been nice to everybody, but this one person comes in and they're like, rah, and they start screaming, and no one can figure out why. It's instinctual, but there's something that the baby's picking up about this supposedly nice person. If we were authentic to those impulses, we would probably navigate our lives towards people who would make us, we just experience delight and relaxation and safety with those people. We would move towards creativity that would inspire us. So we'd actually, through following our instinctual nature or the basic pleasure impulse in our body, we would navigate through life in a healthy way. We would actually move towards the things that would feel good. Now, I know that goes against a lot of how we think of things in society. We just got to, bear and grin it and do and work hard and all these things, these ethics, but it's resulting in a very sick culture, physically and mentally very, very sick culture. And there's a reason for that. Lack of pleasure, as I said before, pain causes contraction, it causes illness. We don't function at our maximum capacity. And so if day in and day out we're relating with people we can't stand, and we're living in a place that's just awful to our senses, and we have a job that we hate, what do you think is going to happen to the being? So understanding pleasure in that kind of simple way, where it's like a guideline, a compass, and it takes it out of just sexuality, we start to have more of a reverence for it. And what's cool, Jackie, is I actually got to speak with someone in the UN. I had a meeting a while ago, and I propositioned the UN. I said, we need to make pleasure a human birthright, and this is why. It is not frivolous. When we have pleasure in our lives to this degree, we actually access more creativity, more self-esteem, more genius, more solutions to what are needed to make this planet a livable place.
Yeah.
But if everyone's shut down and just trying to, barely survive, we can't think beyond our noses, and all these things start to happen and occur beyond our creativity because we just don't have the bandwidth. It's not really a great place. So I believe it's actually a human birthright. And when it's re-established that way as truth, we will treat it in a very different way versus it being a commodity, something that is outside of us that we need to purchase or get from someone. And we go, no, I have this in me now. I'm just not living in a way where I can really feel it.
Wow. Oh my gosh. It's mind-blowing, the work that you're doing in the world, and I completely 100% agree with you. And it's literally over the past year I've kind of have had this awakening, or I don't know, more like a reawakening to this, and just this feeling that there's nothing wrong with it. We're born this way. And actually, my next question is, I listened to a webinar with you, and you mentioned in it about that we orgasm in the womb, and this literally shifted something massive within me, because I was just like, we are born this way, and it just made so much sense. And I suddenly had all these realizations, and I have to be honest, I still have some issues around expressing myself in this way. And even when I'm alone, and it's just like guilt and shame and this feeling of it's wrong and dirty, and it's so deeply ingrained. And I'm wondering if you've got any views on this or any advice.
Yes. So what you're referring to was a study that was done on fetal development, and they were doing ultrasounds. And what they noticed both with boy babies and female babies is that there was this stimulation of the genital area, and then these pulsings that would happen in the baby's body, and this would happen over and over again. And they started to recognize that that was orgasm. Fundamentally, like really ancient traditions view that kind of behavior, because sexuality was revered and it was understood as the primal life force, that which creates life. So to feel that the body, the being, the little baby would know that to induce that kind of pleasure actually helps the cells to grow in a healthy way, like that kind of like unconscious but instinctual wisdom that's already innately in the body, blew my mind. It was like, fantastic. Yeah. We know this already. We don't even need to learn this. There's this thing that we know, that if we feel really good, everything blossoms. And that's from like before birth. So how beautiful is that? And your question, what it's addressing and looking at is a learned behavior. The learned behavior is shame, because we're born shameless. We don't even know what shame is. We're born so naturally at home in our own bodies, so naturally connected with feelings of delight. And if you look at a baby, young baby, there's only a few options. They're either screeching because something doesn't feel good, or they're gurgling and giggling because it feels good. And that's really what's available to the baby. And that's fundamentally, it remains true as an adult, we just get more complex. And then we're socialized in very specific ways. And there are very few modern cultures that do not elicit shame, because shame is a great way to control people. It's a great way to dim people's genius. It's a great way to keep people from really feeling their sovereignty and their power and expression in the world, is to elicit shame. And the fastest way to do that is through the most primal and instinctual piece, which is our sexuality. Why? Well, I don't know if you noticed, Jackie, but when you leave your house and you go to the bank, or you go to a meeting, or you go to church, or wherever you're going, your genitals actually come with you. You can't leave them at home on the bedside table saying, you stay there. You can't be involved with what I'm about to do. They travel with us. And here's the key thing. Modern society believes that sexuality is a commodity. It believes that it's something that we do. It does not understand that it's something that we are innately sexual beings. And because we believe it's something that we do, then every time we feel a physical sensation of turn on, we believe that we need to do something about that. Or if someone near us is experiencing turn on, somehow we're responsible for it, or we should do something about their turn on. Or not, but most of the time we feel sort of this guilt, like, oh God, they really want that, so maybe I should do something. And that's a fundamental lie. It's a fundamental kind of a skewing of what's true. We are sexual beings, and there's nothing we have to do about our turn on unless we choose to. And one of the things that I teach people is, can you allow yourself to feel the sensation of aliveness, of turn on in your body, and just feel it and do nothing about it? I know it can be hard. I know it can feel like so overwhelming that you need to move or get rid of it, like a bad itch or something. But fundamentally, at some point, you become so attuned and relaxed with this particular sensation that you stop also relating it permanently to sexuality. And so here's an example. When I talk to people who are in their genius, say about business, let's take it totally out of the realm of sexuality, move it to business for a second, which is an interesting place to talk about this. And they've got a gift, and their gift is going to be useful to me. It's going to somehow make my business even more amazing. And they're sharing that gift with me. I can tell you, Jackie, I get turned on. It's like a different kind of G-spot. And I'm like, oh my God, I am so turned on. You are amazing. I had no idea that we could do this and it would have this experience. Beautiful. That sensation of turn on is the mechanism in my being saying, yes, move towards that.
you just articulate things so well. Yeah, that's just profound. That what you just said is so profound. Um, I, yeah, I'm like kind of speechless because there's a lot of information which I'm kind of just opening up to and realizing kind of for myself as well. And you're kind of a reflection of that at the moment for me. So I'm definitely going to be looking back over this interview so I can take it all in. Is it okay for me to move on, or did you want to continue with
Absolutely.
that? Okay. I was actually going to speak a bit about business later on, but okay, like this is probably the bit that most people have been waiting for. Tell me about the jade egg, because
Mm.
I think in the UK especially, it's something that women just don't really know about, and everything's so reserved here and quite taboo. And I actually don't even have one yet. I'm definitely keen to get one. Yeah, so tell us about the jade egg.
Great. Just on a side note, I've taught a lot in England, in London especially,
Mm.
many retreats for many years. And so there's a small population of you who are interested and who are I would call like the leading edge pioneers in Britain. There's a group of women who are like, okay, I know that there's more to sex than what I've learned. I want to learn more and I want to come home to my body, or I've had sexual trauma, or I've had a bunch of babies. I need to recover my pelvic floor health, or I'm going through menopause and this is so hard, or I've been through menopause and this is so hard. So there are many reasons why a person would come towards this particular practice.
Mm.
So it's not, sometimes when we hear something new, we're like, oh, that's way too kinky. It's not for me.
Yeah.
And so I want to bring it back to normalcy. So first, before I talk about the jade egg, let's talk about maybe some of the benefits that emerge from doing it as like using that as a practice.
Mm.
So the first and fundamental thing is pelvic health for all women across all ages is an issue. And the reason for that I say that is most pelvic health imbalances are something that's preventable. Preventable through two things. One, proper exercise of the pelvic region to really understand what to do in terms of an exercise program for your pelvis. This will eliminate almost all issues, just knowing how to properly exercise this area of your body. And the reason we need to do that is we are a sitting culture. And because we sit, women as young as in their 20s have atrophied pelvises. And when a pelvis is atrophied, there's not enough blood flow and there's a lot of problems that can happen. So that's the caveat, the information for the physical bit. The second thing is the emotional part. So when I teach Jade Egg, it's not just about physical technique. We actually learn that there's no separation in our psychosexual being. It's interwoven. And so all the issues, the female imbalance issues, came from a doctor called Dr. Sarno. He wrote a book called The Divided Mind. And he speaks about this epidemic of psychosomatic illness. It does not lessen the illness, actually. The illnesses can be just as intense. But what he realized is the underlying cause behind almost the majority of illness was this break in the psyche's connection with the body. And so when done properly, the jade egg returns us home to our body. It helps bring our conscious mind, the part of you that's aware, to become aware somatically. That means through physical sensations of what's actually happening in your pelvic area and your genitals. This is crucial. It's crucial because as young women, we are actually socialized outside of even noticing our arousal cues, outside of even being attuned to what that part of our body is saying. And I'm not just talking about sexual turn on, I'm talking about delight, I'm talking about health, I'm talking about periods that don't hurt, these kinds of things. Really, really important.
Well, that kind of leads me on to my next question, really, because I'm a herbalist and a naturopath and do energy healing. And before this, I was a stripper, and I had some trauma and issues going on, and I had endometriosis type symptoms. I had precancerous cells, all sorts of things going on down there. And I kind of cured myself with herbs and nutrition. And yeah, one of my main questions actually was, does the jade egg practice help with physical conditions like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happens is, and this is not magical.
Mm.
Imagine an area of your body that is atrophied. It's not getting enough blood flow and lymph flow. So it's not getting enough oxygen and nutrition. What do you think the state of the condition of the tissue is going to be? It's going to degenerate. So the pelvic floor, because it's not being exercised properly, there's a lot of stagnation in the area. When we start doing practices with the jade egg, two things are happening. One, of course, you're infusing your consciousness there. That alone already creates a shift, huge shift. Secondly, the practices themselves create more blood flow, lymph flow, oxygenation, so that all the stagnant blood and things that are moving. So the tissues themselves become more vibrant. Now, I'll share a personal experience. I had cell changes on my cervix. And in order to make sure it wasn't cancer, they did a biopsy where they take a chunk out.
Yeah.
And I actually watched that surgery on a screen. It was very traumatic. But they cut a huge chunk of my cervix out. I never in my mind thought I need to heal my cervix, and I didn't think of those things. But through doing jade egg practice and just continuing on my own and healing my body and my heart, because it was also very traumatic. Now when a doctor looks at my cervix, they can't even see scar tissue. They don't even know that I've had surgery. They think I just have this perfect cervix. They're like, my God, it's like,
Wow.
There's no way you had surgery. So it regrew itself without even leaving scarring. This is a really important thing, because that would naturally occur if something is well oxygenated, a lot of blood flow, lymph flow, there's good nerve signaling. That can't happen if we don't understand how to exercise the part of the pelvis. So not all jade egg practice is healthy for you. There's many practitioners kind of teaching things in an old school fashion, I'll say. And over the years, after doing this for almost 2 decades, I've discovered there's some harmful ways of using the egg that actually can elicit more scarring or more even numbing. Mm-hmm. Initially, it might look like it's doing something, but long-term use is actually not so great. And then there's a really great way of working with the jade egg that's not only about tone and tightness, but also equally teaches the pelvic floor how to become soft and relaxed and open, and teaches the pelvic floor how to become dexterous, which means the different groups of muscles learn to fire in different moments consciously.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm just gonna butt in here because I just wanted to ask you something to do with the jade egg, and that is you have kegels, and that's about tight, and the jade egg is, like you said, also about suppleness. But I know a lot of women would be scared of putting it inside them, and I'm just wondering, because I remember seeing something that you said about when your yoni is ready to invite something in, it actually sucks it in rather than pushing it in, kind of thing. And I just wondered if you could, I don't know, go into a bit more on that, that side.
Sure. Okay, so the way that we're designed vaginally, there's obviously designed for birth, incredible design for birth. I mean, so many things change to allow a beautiful baby to emerge into the world. Incredible. So that's like a pushing down and out feature that's innate into the feminine body. The one feature that is also innate, but that doesn't get articulated purely out of lack of education, is our capacity to draw in or pull into ourselves. And it's definitely something women can learn. It can take a little bit of time to learn it, but when we learn it, something magical happens. So imagine, let this hand be like the egg or finger, and this hand is like my vagina and the inner lips. And so I bring the egg here and I let it rest. the capacity for the vagina, if allowed and exercised properly, is to do this.
Awesome.
Right?
That's what you want.
That's what we want. Now, but we spent a whole life pushing things into our vaginas, whether they're tampons or doctors' speculums or partners, our own fingers, doesn't matter. There's things that we just kind of push in, and it's an inactivity. So receptivity isn't a passive act. Receptivity is an active act, and suppleness and softening and melting open isn't passive. It's an active way of receiving. So you're actively receiving.
Wow.
And what's beautiful about that, and this is quite amazing, because say like I've worked with a lot of married women who have had a lot of intercourse over, however long their marriages are. One woman, she was married, I think, 25 years, and she liked intercourse, but just liked it. It wasn't like her favorite thing. There were other things she preferred. And she said once she learned that sipping, intercourse went from okay and likable to out of this world, outstanding, freaking incredible. Like, oh my God, I never knew this was possible. Why? Many reasons. One, this practice alone, just that one practice, is innervating your pelvis. That means creating new nerve endings where you may not have had sensation before. You start to have sensation. So for me, it's like waking up the sleeping beauty, right? Yeah. Another is there's more. So because of that, there's more sensitivity and aliveness. There's more localized production of fluids. So a woman becomes a lot juicier. In fact, I know an elder who'd been dry for years, and her intercourse was so painful, her and her husband kind of gave up on it. And then one day, after a bit of time with the jade egg, he said, "Oh my God, you are so wet." And she's like, "I am." And he's like, "Yes." And they had beautiful lovemaking like they hadn't had in years, like over a decade. And her yoni has been so vibrant and alive. And they've just, like, they're new teenagers together again. So there's this thing that happens through this process of waking up with more blood flow and cellular energy, and just this whole repatterning where you're not just shoving something in, but you're literally an empowered woman who's in her sexual sovereignty, who's inviting something in because she desires it with her whole being. Is a whole other experience than just kind of being passive and having something push into you and you're not quite ready, or you're like, okay, that's nice, but
yeah.
Or even if you really like intercourse, because for me it also really transformed. And then the gift of that, oh my God, the gift of that is a vagina with consciousness. I mean, that's how it's been translated by the men who have partners who can do this. They're like, I ain't going back to anything else. This is absolutely exceptional. There is nothing in the world like an awakened yoni. Nothing.
Wow.
It is so satisfying because you don't need a lot of movement when you have that much awakening. So all that really hard thrusting just to get a bit of sensation, sometimes lovemaking can look like hardly moving at all, and there's just so much pleasure and sensation. So it opens up the realm of possibility for women and men in a massive way.
Yeah, and energetically as well, when a woman is awakened in that way, that I just think the energy of the female energy of the cervix and the womb and the yoni, just like, I don't know, I've read quite a bit about tantra and things recently, and just, like de-armoring the yoni and allowing the cervix to dilate and invite things in, and just that, yeah, like you said, you don't even need any movement, and it can be multi-orgasmic, full body orgasmic, just from that. And yeah, wow. And so the jade egg can really help with these things. And
yeah, so just a little caveat, the egg itself can't do that for you, but how you use it, your relationship to yourself, and the building of the bridge of your consciousness with the somatic experience is what's doing and eliciting that. So the jade egg kind of becomes like a girl's best friend. Yeah. And it's very, very empowering for a woman to understand her body that way and become very masterful with her own body. It's empowering because now you're not thinking that pleasure is outside of yourself, or that though you need these particular conditions to have an orgasm, because suddenly you're entraining your body to set yourself up for having more and more pleasure. And that's what's exciting about it, is when women recognize that they're not dependent on an external source for their pleasure, then there's a liberation in that. And then like, well, if I don't need a partner, then what the hell is relationship for? I'm like, it's not about that. It's about, you may not need a partner, but you can desire playing and delighting with another. And that's the beauty of it. But you're removing the full responsibility and heaviness of this other person having to elicit all these sensations in your body, because you've now claimed for yourself that, wow, I'm the one generating all this pleasure. And
That's
actually, yeah, go ahead.
that's just such a relief. Like I can just hear women all around just a sigh of relief just from that. Sorry, carry on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's, this piece is so important, because without this piece, then what we tend to do is we bargain for love and sex. We negotiate our non-negotiables. We put up with things that we know in our hearts and our bodies we just don't want in our lives, but we do it because we don't really feel the freedom to move forward or really claim what's important for us. So what I've noticed for women with this practice is not only in the bedroom are they more expressed and confident and relaxed and having more fun, but also in the world, like how they create their relationships, how they give their gift in their careers, all how they parent. Oh my gosh, how you parent is like huge. How you relate to other people, massive. How you relate to other women. These things shift in a way where you become a walking, living inspiration, and no one freaking knows why. They just know that you smile a lot more. They're like, why is she always smiling? And I know in England, smiling is not that popular. Um, because frivolous is often associated with smiling and happiness. But being able to smile inwardly, like being able to just have a little piece of private delight, whether or not you're partnered, that you yourself have a resource that you can tune into, that independent of anything else, you can drop in and go, gosh, yum, I've got me. I'm like, I'm enough. That's a place where you start to develop what I call the gourmet offering. In most relationships, we are beggars. We come forward with this little bowl. We're like, listen, Jackie, you need to provide me with 600 orgasms this week and emotional security and like whatever else my bowl requires. And you do the same to me. So we're two beggars begging for fulfillment, instead of two people with gourmet plates going, hey, check out my plate. Look, it's super tasty. and then when you try to bargain with me going, hey, I got this like cheap pizza, you know, and you're like, well, actually I don't need it. I got this gourmet plate. However, if you would like to join me, great, but I'm not going to bargain for love anymore.
Yeah.
That's a really crucial piece in creating happiness in one's life. And it comes from self, and it comes from having a degree of sexual mastery and at homeness in being a feminine creature and being this emotional, cyclical, expressed, and instinctual animal.
Wow.
All of that is part of our nature.
Actually, the next question I have is, you've collaborated and been recognized by some other amazing women that are doing just fantastic things in the world, like Christine Northrup, and I know that you have mentioned like Elisavity and things like that, like with Women Code and all of this. Do you have any plans to collaborate with anyone else in the future?
I do. I can't mention her name yet because she's like, what I can say is she's at the very highest level of her field at this hospital and university here in the States. And because of that, she can't come out yet.
Right.
But soon she'll be coming out publicly. And she's actually developed a method for gynecologists that is freaking brilliant. It's so amazing. It bridges not only body, but she has a process that has a look at your spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental quadrants around your genitals. And she is helping women heal in ways that are just phenomenal through just going to the doctor and getting a pap smear. I mean, that's what she does. But the way in which she does it and the system that she's created is so powerful that women are walking away empowered. She's got programs for women who pre-marriage, some of them are still virgins. They don't quite understand their body. She helps prepare them. She helps women who've had a lot of trauma reclaim their bodies and become shameless through being a gynecologist and doing this
Wow.
process. And she's been inspired by my work for years, and so we are wanting to collaborate together in different projects. One of them would be helping women, like sex workers, reclaim their bodies and heal their bodies. Others, I want to look at a lot of different things. There's many areas where our collaboration could be absolutely incredible. So yes, I am very excited to collaborate with her.
Wow. I've actually been experiencing some issues relating to speaking out openly about this type of thing, this type of information, and I just feel like this is quite a big issue in the world at the moment that a lot of women face, like in the workplace and in their lives. It's just this feeling that it's inappropriate to speak about it, or it's even inappropriate to dress a certain way, or even feel beautiful in yourself, or like
Mm.
for me it's specifically about speaking about sexuality. I've been told it's unprofessional, and that I, can't combine herbal medicine with sexuality and things like that. And it's just this feeling that you have to tone yourself down and play it small. And I was just wondering, like, how have you managed to express exactly who you are without being misinterpreted, and what advice would you give to other women about this?
First of all, I'm constantly misinterpreted.
Right.
Like, constantly. You can't change how people view your message or who you are. And that used to cause me a lot of discomfort. So, what's more important than that is, why are you doing what you're doing? Why do I do what I do? And I can tell you why I do what I do. I do what I do because at the end of the day, when one single woman comes home to herself and really gets that she is sacred, her body is sacred, and her sexuality is her birthright, her pleasure is her birthright, when she gets that, forget the rest of the world, when she gets it, I've done my work. And it is for her, it is for that woman that I show up every day. I am the voice for the women who are brave enough, courageous enough in this time of there's still incredible suppression and oppression of the naturalness of our femininity and our sensuality and sexuality. It is for the women who are courageous enough to claim it for themselves, whether or not the world knows about it. Don't need to advertise it. This is the important point that I want to make. When we start to cultivate our sexuality, equally important and valid to cultivate our emotionality, our emotional nature, so that they both can mature simultaneously. What that gives us is an empowerment. Because now we don't just have this big, huge, powerful sexuality. We have emotional intelligence on how to handle it and how to cultivate it and how to express it in the world. So even though I feel very liberated and very expressed sexually, you will see moments where I actually dress with the costume that's appropriate for that particular group of people. I don't need to show up in a particular outfit if I understand that that's going to trigger like the entire room, when all I'm trying to do is communicate a message.
Yeah.
So I've learned that life is a stage and there's different acts and there's different groups. And my sensuality does not get turned off, but it's not always externally like being expressed in really obvious ways. It's held as a current, like a breath that is breathing life into my body. And it is informing me in a very intelligent way so that I can speak to whoever's there in front of me in their language so that they can understand that coming home to themselves is not only safe and right, it's essential for them to gift their genius to the world. So that's how I relate with this.
Mm.
It's a sad fact that we aren't completely free to dress as we would choose in certain circumstances, that we're not completely free to just dance with a band in certain sections of the city because that would, call inappropriate or even scary attention to us. But here's the deal. As we come home to our instinctual nature, as we come home to this innate erotic intelligence, you will know clearly what's a go and what's a stop. You don't have to shut yourself down when it's a red light. Does
Oh,
that make sense?
yeah, I so needed to hear that. Seriously, I so needed to hear that, because I was having this issue of like, I don't want to put on a front or a persona and be dishonest with myself, just to please other people. But at the same time, I've got this conflict of like, I want to be able to reach people as well. And so you saying that has just totally freed me from this kind of limiting belief that if I don't know, if I kind of go with what the people want in a way, that's gonna limit me, and actually
Right.
it won't. And what you're saying is just so freeing in itself. So I really appreciate that advice, and I think a lot of other women will as well. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Like, imagine, just for a moment, imagine that you go to a different culture
Yeah.
and you want to communicate with that culture. Are you going to make the entire culture learn your language, or will you learn at least some basic words in their language?
Yeah, you'd learn some basic words.
Right. And then you can communicate how it is for you and your culture
Mm.
in a way that they will understand. So, and I always am very delicate with this, because sensuality and sexuality is a delicate and very private and deep space for people. And it's been so misused and overused and misunderstood. So I'm very respectful of understanding that with people. And yet, I cannot tell you, I won't mention anything. Like, I don't even tell people I have anything to do with sexuality, nothing. And I'm on an airplane or I'm somewhere really unusual, and the person is asking me questions about sexuality, and I haven't said a word about it. So, when people can feel your at homeness in yourself, and they can feel that you are the living embodiment of what you truly believe in, not only in your mind, but you've done the work so that it is living truth in your cells. It's resonating and emanating limbically through your beingness and impacting people. That has more impact and validity than any words you say or any things you do on a stage or in public.
Mm.
Who you are as a being, what you embody, is so impactful. In fact, there's a book written about it called A General Theory of Love. And it literally states that who we are as human beings is more important than anything we say or do, and why and how that works with the brain. So when we can understand that, then taking care of ourselves and making the choices that are true for us and creating the lifestyle that really anchors that. Like, pleasure is my birthright. It makes me thrive. I connect with my creativity. I have so much more abundance to give. I'm so much more fun for people to be around. I'm so much fun for myself to be around myself. That's for me. No one needs to know about this choice. It's for me.
Yeah.
And then you have this beautiful sovereignty, this place. You're sovereign to your queendom, your realm. And you only invite people into that realm that respect that. Everybody else is sort of exists outside of the realm. They come and go. So that's also very important, Jackie, is knowing when to share and when not to share.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that advice. I really appreciate that. One video that I watched of yours was speaking about the sex education in schools and the porn
Right.
industry, like the fact that that's what teaches us about sex, and it's basically nothing really to do with intimacy. It's like, in school you get taught about the mechanics, and then really all we have to go by is porn, and that's just like not really a genuine, deep, satisfying, respectful kind of pleasure. Do you think this will ever change? And I mean, you touched on like parenting earlier. What kind of advice do you have for parents of young adolescents, or just about home teaching about sex, if any?
What I just said. So if your comfort level around sexuality is really like you confront it, you look at it, because we literally emanate what we are. So if you're a parent and you have a lot of discomfort around the topic, that gets translated in literally, it's called limbic imprinting. Your child is imprinted with, oh, this is what a woman looks like as a sexual being in the world. Upset, angry, shut down, unhappy. That's what it looks like. Or not. Maybe you are like in your integrity and you're vibrating delight and you're at home in your body, and that's what they get. That is primarily, before you ever say anything, the most important. The second piece, I think, is not to interfere with the natural erotic innocence that emerges in all children. It's in all children. And they do not relate to sexuality the way an adult does. They don't. It's not, we can't even perceive how they relate to it. It's innocent, it's pure, it's connected. It's not about all the things that we've learned about. So allowing the space and teaching healthy boundaries, I think, is really great. So I had that education where I was free to explore my body, but not in the Safeway aisles, and not when there was 12 guests in the dining room, and in the privacy of my room. I had to learn these things, but they're good things to teach kids. And the less you fear the topic and the more at home you are to it, and this is what I've noticed with the women in my life, the ones who have the most success with their teenagers are the ones who are most at home in themselves, and the teenagers can sense and feel that, and they'll even resource the parents on questions that normally kids wouldn't resource parents for. And kids can tell. They can tell when you're going to be judgmental. They can tell when you're afraid. They can tell like all these things, and you never even need to say anything. We can't avoid the porn industry. It's just big and huge, and it's prolific. If we can let kids know that there's other aspects to sexuality that also exist, and the imprint of how you relate to your partner is huge. Are you kind? Are you connected? Are there ways where your life is foreplay, meaning you're enjoying each other's space, or is it like hidden and you're never kind to each other? There's sort of like this coldness that goes on, except for in the bedroom, things like this. These are all very, very, very impactful. And I believe that the child sex education does need to include intimacy education, how to be intimate. I know amazing parents who've taught their children how to ask for what they want, how to create boundaries, how to say no or slow down, or like just actually create their experience. That's pretty special, because your kids are going to be sexual at some point. Do you want them to have a maturity and a clarity about it where they can actually get their needs met in a way that's healthy? Or are they going to be the kind of kids that do sex in the back alley or get abused, or these types of things are going to happen. We cannot avoid it. We don't live in this void. It's in there, it's out there. So that would be my advice. I mean, there's a lot more, but just due to time.
Of course.
is be the living example. Be the living example for your kids.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I'm just gonna pick like one or two more. Okay. I think we've been going quite a while.
You just have to have me back.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I've got to talk about this. So I came across a video about orgasmic birth and like the current situation with birthing procedures in hospitals, and like laying women on their back and how that can just generate more pain. And Do you think that your courses and tools would help women open up to these possibilities? And what's your opinion on the orgasmic or ecstatic birth?
Awesome question. I was very, very privileged to be on two panels that involved like an ecstatic birth panel with Christian Northrup and Ina May Gaskin and all these leading women in the midwifery and gynecology and that whole field of birthing. And I was probably the only woman on the entire panel that hadn't birthed herself. You know, I haven't given birth to a human child. And but the reason I was invited there is I work with women pre and post birth all the time and had a lot of success with that. Pre-birth, the use of the jade egg, especially very special techniques that I teach, what was fed back to me, because I wasn't focused on this, so it's fed back to me, are the only practice that seems to be existing at this time that help women understand how to birth, like the actual physical process of opening the body and birthing. The technology exists within the practices that I teach. So what happens when those women give birth, they already have like the neural pathways of understanding. So there's a trust that's set into the body. The body just knows what to do even more. I mean, it already knows what to do, but there's this a conscious knowing that your body knows what to do. There's a conscious knowing of how to soften and open. That's really beautiful. There's a conscious knowing of how to be in your body and ride the waves where maybe you're on the edge of an extreme pain and then it becomes pleasure. I mean, there's these aspects, I guess would be side effects of the practice because we're not, you know, focused on birthing, but that's the result of doing conscious practice. Post-birth is what I'm quite interested in because there's not a lot of post-birth help for women. There's a lot of pre-birth and during pregnancy help, but not post. I find women are often abandoned post-birth.
Yeah.
And so post-birth, what women have said to me is they've tried so many things, but the thing that helped them the most was my methodology with the jade egg. Like they were just really, wow, the recovery was complete and they went back to pre-birth state pelvis health and healing the scar tissue and whatever might emerge in the birthing process, helping balance the hormones. All of these things are a result of them understanding what to do with their own body post-birth, which most of us don't, right?
Yeah.
It's not taught to us. Again, it's not a focus of my training, but by doing what's available, like the methods that I offer, it's a side effect.
Yeah.
So it's really a great program that way.
Okay, I guess we can kind of wrap it up a bit, but just one last question. What is your, actually it's kind of two, what's your main message to the world and where can people get their hands on all your amazing offerings and where can people find you? So yeah, what's your one main message to the world and where can people find you?
Awesome question. I have so many main messages. Today's main message is that your pleasure is your birthright and your sensuality and your sexuality are not a commodity. They are powerful resources that you have within yourself that when accessed just create the life that you've actually been desiring, which is a life of vitality, being relaxed and at home with yourself and attracting to you the things that you desire. We become extremely magnetic when we're connected with ourselves. And for the sake of this particular interview, I'd love to send people to thejadeegg.com because I have like a free ebook where women could just download it and start getting way more information on the jade egg and what it does and actually how to start using one, even if they don't have one. There's some practices in there you can do even without the egg. It's a really, really fantastic resource. I think there's like close to 60 something pages in there. Wow. And it's totally free.
It's free.
Yeah, it's free. And yeah, and on the same page, there's some educational videos and it's a really great page to go visit. So that's a great place to start. And I'm really looking forward to possibly coming back and we can talk more, because
Yay!
this has been a lot of fun.
Definitely, and I'll get the links off you for everything, and I'll leave them in the description box below for everybody. So thank you so much, Saeeda. Honestly, this has just been awesome. I just feel so charged right now. Like, wow. I'm gonna definitely watch this back later, because there's, you know, when it's just like quite a lot of information, and because I'm here with you sort of involved in it, it'll be nice to kind of watch it from the outside perspective as well, and pick up on bits that I missed. But yes, thank you so much, and please do come back on my channel. Definitely, I'd love to keep talking with you. You're so easy to get on with and just beautiful person, so thank you so much.
Yay!
Yay! Bye!
Bye.